Hello, hello, and welcome to Fine, I'll Talk About It, the podcast where we say the quiet parts out loud. Real talk, straight to the point, no fake positivity. I'm your host, Danielle Young, and today I'm joined by Katie Corlis. Katie is a business owner since 2012, and her jam and jelly is LinkedIn optimization and monetization. On today's episode, we are diving into the struggles of dating as a successful businesswoman and a caregiver to aging parents. Katie, welcome to Final Talk About It.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to finally talking about some stuff.
Yeah, glad you're here. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you're up to and how you're navigating this dating world as a caregiver. I don't even want to even think about dating now, but we'll get into that. Tell me about you.
So, a little bit about me. I am originally from Colorado. About 7-8 years ago, I decided that Denver, which is where I had been predominantly my entire life, was no longer my cup of tea. It just didn't feel like home. So, though I'm an only child and there's lots of expectations with that particular title, I told my parents that I was going to move. And in May of 2019, I moved to North Carolina. I lived in a small coastal town called Jacksonville, which is mainly known as a military town. I am not military. I'm a civilian, although I do love my military people. So if you have served, thank you. If you have somebody in your family who has served, thank you as well to them. I know it's a very small community, and honestly, I loved it for a very long time. I went through the pandemic there, which was unique with the
Yeah.
pandemic, right?
Oh,
But after coming up from all of the lessons of the pandemic, I realized I wasn't ever really going to be truly happy where I landed. So, May of 2024, I moved to Philadelphia. I'm currently residing in a suburb of Philadelphia. I've been here a little over a year now. I love it. It's a hustle and bustle East Coast style that I have just done so well. Finding my people, finding my tribe, figuring out how to make things work. I've owned, like you said, I've owned my own business since 2012. I love LinkedIn. It was actually shortly before the pandemic that particular skill set became the hone in. A lot of people started approaching me with, hey, I've got some questions. I hear rumbling in my background at the water cooler. Then we're going to go through a merger. I don't know what LinkedIn is. Can you help? I had done social media management up until that point. I was very good at social media management, still am for some of our family companies that we have on both sides of my tree. So very appreciative of that. But LinkedIn just became my jam and jelly, as I say. I love it. I love walking into somebody's LinkedIn presence and saying, okay, from a profile aspect, top to bottom, these are the things we're going to work on. Here's why. Here's how we're going to post. Here's how we're going to build your network, because those are things that matter. And it's funny, as I've immersed myself into different networking groups, I've learned that there are other consultants within the LinkedIn space that focus on other aspects. But I typically am just a bit of a unicorn because I focus on your profile and how to actually be present on the platform. It's really not complicated, I promise. It's just gotten a really bad rap, honestly.
it has. Yeah,
It
I'm
has.
one of those people where I'm like, I can't do LinkedIn. I don't know the purpose. I mean, I'm on it, and I'll have you look at my profile.
I will for sure.
I'm like, I'm on it, but I don't know how the hell to use it. I'm like, what do people
Right.
do? I'm a coach. And the posts that I see are like ads, and everybody that I friend or accept just wants to sell me something. And
Oh, and that's one of the things I work on with my clients is how to build a powerful network that's going to benefit you, that's going to have referral partners, that's going to have, if you're a coach, right? So you're going to
Mhm.
have ideal clients naturally fall within your scope of your connection base. And that way, as you post and you get more consistent on your posting, people are like, oh, I know what she does. I know why there's a phoenix in her logo. I understand the whole concept better of how she embraces the elements of wellness the way she does. So I will definitely chit chat about that whole concept. That could be a whole nother podcast on
Oh,
itself.
yeah. Honestly, I would love that because I think a lot of people are really, I mean, everybody in my circle is like, what do you do with LinkedIn? Like,
Yeah,
how, like,
I will
what?
definitely come in. I can definitely talk about that. Now, it's not as juicy as my dating world. I'm not gonna lie,
Yes.
but
Let's talk about the dating world or lack thereof from what I'm hearing.
I am 39. I have been single pretty much most of my adulthood. Every now and then I'll find, as I phrase them, a handsome duck. And let me explain that. So, Duck Dynasty years ago, that show taught me a lot about ducks. And one of the things it talked about was apparently there's an echolocation aspect of the bill of a duck. And they can't really fly in straight lines. They're a little askew. So when people are like, oh, you got to get your ducks in a row. Well, ducks aren't supposed to go in rows, apparently, from a biological standpoint. So I, as a very creative thinker, was like, well, they belong in ponds. Therefore, I'm just going to put my ducks in a pond, right? And for
Mhm.
years, my type A personality was like, I have my finance pond, I have my family pond, I have my romance pond. And then the pandemic just kind of merged all those ponds. So I now have a big pond with lots of ducks. But the one duck that I have been missing is my ideal handsome duck. It is a man that I would love to build a life with. And I'm not going to use the phrase settle down because honestly, I don't settle. I don't settle for the caliber of clients I take. I don't settle for the friendships that I build. I left Colorado because of some very toxic friendships and family relationships. So if
Yeah.
I'm willing to walk away from everything I've known pretty much, I've got some standards for that ideal handsome duck.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'll be a duck wrangler. I'll just wrangle all these ducks in the pond, right? Finances, figured it out, right? Family, figured it out. I'm an only child. My grandparents are 98 years old. I have 2 living grandparents. So I have
Wow.
my grandparent ducks, right? And they don't really swim a lot. They're just kind of like on the side and they just like wave with their little like flapper. It's adorable, right?
Yeah.
Those are my grandparent ducks. And my parent ducks are swimming. So I appreciate these ducks, but good golly, Miss Molly, twice on toast. Finding an ideal handsome duck has been nerve-wracking for years.
Mm.
I've tried dating apps. I've tried in real life dating. I've been to speed dating events, especially here in Philly, 10 times so far. I kid you not, like once a month for most of this year. I've gone to some type of speed dating. I love speed networking for my business. So I love speed dating in theory for
Yeah.
my ideal handsome duck. But it's crazy out there. Some of the men I've met are still married. Some of
Wait,
the
and they're
men
coming to speed dating
that
events?
yes, and these
Are
are in
they
the
at least
evening.
separated?
No, they're straight up married, and they'll tell you that.
The,
They're like,
oh my God.
"Oh, we're in
They will
a
straight up tell you they're still married.
yeah, we're in an open relationship." That's what a lot of
Oh,
single women get told is that all these men all of a sudden are in um ethical non-monogamous relationships, which I, as somebody who has a wide variety of social ducks, I know that does exist. I've seen how those relationships work when they
yeah.
actually are that. But
Right.
there's a lot of men who are putting that on their dating profiles and in real life, saying those words, when in reality, they're not in open relationships. They are not in a relationship that looks like that at all. They're just probably bored with their significant other. And instead of doing the responsible, mature adult decision of, I have fallen out of love with you, we shall separate,
Yeah.
right? They're
Or at
not
least
doing
going to your partner and saying, hey, something's up. Yeah. Wow. Okay. That
yeah,
blows my mind. And to full on admit it is,
right.
that's bonkers to me. I mean, okay.
Or
I guess. Okay. Go ahead.
I had another one. This other man, I really found him attractive. He was a local lawyer. He had all of these checklist things done.
Yeah.
I probably had maybe 7 dates with him. And on the 8th date, he made a comment about the fact we had not been intimate, and he had all these things he had to tell me. And in the frustration, it slipped out that he was married. So I had been out with him 7 times before, and this was the 8th time I'd invested time to get to know him as a human being, and he told me he was married. He was unhappily
Oh
married,
my
and I said, "Sir, it doesn't matter if you're married or not. If you're happy, if you're unhappy, no, you're married. Sir, you
yeah.
are married. I am not looking to be a third. I am not looking to be a side piece at my age. I'm looking for an ideal handsome duck."
Yeah.
And it's not very difficult. I have a couple of connections here in the Philadelphia suburbs that are willing to play matchmakers. So,
Okay.
while we're recording, this is the season of gratefulness. That's why I kind of look like I have a crown of grateful, fall leaves above my head, which is kind of
Which
cool.
is cute for those of you just listening to this.
Exactly. For those of you who see it, I know, right? It's
Yeah,
pretty
it's it's super cute.
So I spent October and most of November building a matchmaking PDF because I have struggled. I have tried online dating here in Philadelphia. I've tried the speed dating aspects. I've been to singles events on a pretty regular basis. There's a local events company, and all this woman does is single events, which I
Hmm.
was like, yes, I got so excited. Oh my gosh. I found her in March, and I went to like 5 events real quick. And I noticed a few things. One, in my age bracket, there was a lot of the same people there. And so if we didn't click right away after probably the second or third time being in the same room, we probably weren't going to click ever. And that's fine. Or I would find um, ideal handsome ducks to me include being emotionally available and stable,
Mhm.
right?
Makes
So
sense.
you
Yeah.
understand how to have the emotions reciprocate between you and I, right? You understand if you have a shit ass day, I am somebody that you can call and I'm going to say, "Do you want me to listen? Do you want me to fix it? Do you want me to do a combination of both?" That way I know how to engage with this conversation. I'm
Yeah.
naturally a fixer. I'm naturally a problem solver. Most of my clients love me because I think extremely creatively and I get them out of the problems they have. So
Hmm.
when it comes to being emotionally available, that's an aspect. And being stable means exactly that, right? You're not going to let your
Right.
emotions be a massive roller coaster of unpredictability.
Yeah.
There was
You
one
would
guy,
think.
you'd think. There was one guy, I was so hopeful. He matched so many of the check. He was single. Wasn't, he had been married previously. He had been divorced though. The thing
Okay.
that he skirted around the topic is he has been, as of the time we were attempting to date, he had been less than 2 years out of a divorce. And he was the one that got deeply damaged in the divorce. He didn't see it coming.
Mm.
His wife left him and left him almost overnight in a weird way. She had been pulling back for months. She had been very sneaky. She had actually found a new living situation. She was stashing money separately. She was leaving the sneaky way. And then
Yeah.
a couple days before his birthday, dropped divorce papers.
Oh,
And
happy birthday.
right. And so he's very damaged. And I thought, I really like this guy.
Yeah.
And then I realized he's not emotionally available and he's highly damaged to the sense that he's not gotten the therapeutic help to understand the damage that the wife one did.
Yeah. Which is
Right?
unfortunate. Yeah.
It is. And again, I was super happy about that singles events only company where the only events they did were singles. And they still do that. Now there's a whole other issue, but I won't get into that. So as I started reflecting in September of this year, I realized apps are not working. In real life isn't working. So now what?
Yeah. Now
How
what?
do I move forward, right? And I figured I'm going to ask for help. So now I have a number of local contacts that are playing matchmaker on my behalf. I've created 3-page PDF. The first page explains what I'm looking for, why I call men ideal handsome ducks. So it kind of goes through my pond metaphor. A 1 page of what kind of man I'm looking for. It's very methodical, type A broken down. Here are my must haves. Here are my bonuses. This would be like sugar on top kind of situation. And then the last page is if you can find somebody from page 1, or well, page 2 technically, right? About the ideal handsome duck in my world. These are things to share with Evan, we'll say.
Hmm.
So he knows about Katie. These are things about her. And one of the things that I always thought would be a positive is being a business owner, right? I have flexibility.
Mm.
I will travel next month in December to go back to Colorado for a number of days. I'm going to bring my work with me. I've got a couple projects that have weird deadlines and they're right before Christmas. So I'm able to complete it because I can work from anywhere. And I thought that would, from a dating aspect, be a positive,
Mm.
right?
Let me
If
guess, it wasn't.
Well, I think they think it's cool that I own my own business, but then they realize that I'm quite good at my business, and it confuses them. I don't know if it's because a lot of American men have grown up with the idea, especially Gen X, millennial, and the top of Gen Z, men need to be the providers. Well,
Mm.
fuck, newsflash, people. Most of the college educated people every December and May are women. There's more women that are college educated in the last 25 to 30 years than any other time before,
Yeah.
right? My
Well,
point,
yeah, and I think some men have this mentality that their woman can't be more successful than them.
right. Which is funny because a lot of these profiles indicate, I don't care how much money you make, I just care that you're employed. Well, sir, I employ myself. And
Yeah.
if you really don't care, then how come when I bring up some aspects about these great opportunities I have in business, it's like literally you get your feathers in a ruffle, right? This duck all of a sudden just starts flapping all crazy. And I was like, why is me being me ruffling your feathers? I'm very truthful in my the apps, right? I'm very
Yeah.
transparent. And I let people know that I am a business owner and that I love what I do. It allows me such freedom. Again, thinking those are going to be positives and they're not. I'm
Yeah.
like,
A lot of
why the
people have preconceived notions on what that is too.
right,
You're a
right.
workaholic and you don't value relationships because, you have to work all the time because you're self-employed, and there's so many preconceived notions that go into this, and it's like, can we just set that aside for a second? And
Exactly.
if I didn't want another person in my life, I wouldn't be dating. I wouldn't be out here in the field, like in the trenches, going to singles events. Like, why can't
Exactly.
they understand that?
And it's funny because even though I've tried dating other business owners, I have found that to be a challenge because I typically am attracted to very ambitious men. And when they're business owners, they are like what you just said. They're workaholics.
Yeah.
I'm not a workaholic. I have learned to have a work life balance. I'm done by 5 o'clock East Coast time because I live in Philadelphia. So I typically am doing my client stuff, whatever tasks that is, whatever agreements I have in place at the time, Monday through Friday, from roughly 9 in the morning till roughly 5 o'clock at night. Like right now, in the middle of the afternoon, I'm not working on my client stuff right now.
Yeah. No, you're
But I
hanging out with
have
me.
the last couple hours, and I will after this. And I'm going to a
Yeah.
networking event too tonight. So I'm out and about doing things, and I just, it's the fucking double standard
Hmm.
of we want a woman who's able to provide for herself, yet she also does all of these maternal rules that we saw our mom do,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. A lot of my mom's friends, my mom is a boomer, she's 69, and a lot of her friends have made comments that they wish they could have actually completed their college degrees. A lot of my mom's friends did MRS degrees in college instead of
Mm.
actual educational degrees.
Yeah.
They went to college, yes, but they also then found love and they left college. They never completed college. So then it was deeply, deeply shoved down the throats of their millennial children. Hey, you need to finish this, right? So now some of these millennial men that I'm trying to date, they have this weird it's almost like a double-sided coin, right? They want somebody who's independent, has her shit together, can be an adult, but also can essentially mother them. No, thank you.
Ugh.
I don't wanna be somebody's mom,
Yeah.
unless I
No.
am somebody's mom, right?
Yeah,
But I'm
no.
not a mom. I'm a child-free woman at the moment, so I'm nobody's
Yeah.
mother. I don't even have pets or plants in my apartment. It's literally just me, myself, and I, okay? 1, I kill plants. I will be the first to tell you, I have 2 black thumbs, okay? I do not have green thumbs. These things are black, okay? I do not freaking know how to keep plants alive. But I can keep people alive and I can keep pets alive, like, no problem. I can walk
Yeah.
dogs, I can feed cats, gerbils, what snakes kinda freak me out, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
And
No.
kids, freaking love kids. Most of my friends' children growing up, I was like the honorary godmother to most of them. And I was
Aw.
Miss Katie. Even now, I have high schoolers as godchildren, and they still call me Miss Katie because they know it's
Aw.
just a sign of respect, right? I'm very maternal. I
Cute.
can mother
Yeah.
people, but you're not going to get that right out of the gate. That's something that,
You gotta
honestly,
earn that, buddy.
well, it's not even earn it, right? That's just something that will naturally come if it ever gets
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
if you're close to 40 years old and you've been able to keep yourself alive all these years, you should continue to keep yourself alive when you're in a relationship too. That's another thing. I have other contacts of mine. That's what they're learning is they have found these men of high caliber. They make very good money. They're very smart. They're educated many times over, but they delegate everything. They don't cook for themselves. They order everything in, DoorDash, everything. So when she's asking for a home cooked meal, he doesn't know how to do that because it's not a skill he's ever needed. He's made enough in his adult career life to just Blue Apron things every now and then, right?
Yeah.
Even with Blue Apron, he's gotta have the supplies, and you realize he doesn't have the supplies because he's DoorDashed too much stuff in or carried out pizzas and Chinese and all sorts of food options, right?
Yeah.
You it's this weird misstep that a lot of people, honestly, between, like, 35 and late 40s are experiencing.
Hmm.
It is, it's such a weird thing, and
Yeah.
what I'm also learning, which piggybacks to the whole child care, right? People are okay with a woman having caregiver for children, being a child caregiver, right?
Mhm.
Meaning parents, right?
Right.
Whether you're single because it was a one night stand and you really don't know the child's father, or you've been married multiple times, have multiple baby daddies, multiple divorces. Those kind of caregiving skills, I'm learning most men don't really shy away from in real life, on the apps, in the speed dating situations. But when I mention that I am now to the age where I'm starting to really look at becoming the primary caregiver for my parents, it's like
Mm.
deer in a headlight. They don't know what to do with that. Well, what do you mean
Yeah.
you become caregivers? My mom is 69 with Alzheimer's. My dad is 73 with more health elements than I really know about. Last night I was on the phone with him and I learned how bad one of his heart conditions. He has 3 heart conditions and one of them is really, really bad. And I didn't know that until last night. I didn't understand the daily impact of that one health condition.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm looking, though I live in Pennsylvania, I'm looking at caregiving facilities in Delaware
Wow.
because one of the aspects my mom has with Alzheimer's, now that she's gone through her own research rabbit holes, my mom doesn't want me to be at the very end of her Alzheimer's because with Alzheimer's, your brain just turns into mush at some point, right?
Yeah.
So she wants assisted suicide. I never,
Okay.
because it's not something I've had to deal with, right? I'm 39,
Right.
I Alzheimer's, but
Yeah.
now dealing with that. So that was an update I did during this month of November on one of my dating apps. Was talking about how in 2026, one of my goals is to better understand being a caregiver for aging and ailing parents, whether that's support groups, that's understanding the type of facilities my parents need to be at. I don't know. And it's going to be in Delaware for my mom for sure, since that state allows assisted suicide.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's things that I have the skill capability to do because as a business owner, I'm very resourceful. I know how to research stuff.
Yeah.
But as only child, girl, I don't ask for help that often. I don't know how to ask for help. Because who
Same.
am I going
Yeah.
to help from? My
Yeah.
parents, typically.
Yeah.
But my parents are the reason I'm doing this research.
Right. Yeah, no, I get it. I'm an only child too. And it's like, okay, well, I have no one to help me out here. Thankfully my mom is fine and she's healthy, but there will probably come a day when she's going to
Yeah.
need help, and it's one of those aspects of life that you just have, and it becomes a way of life for you.
Yeah.
And that's really hard because I feel like a lot of men want to get into a relationship where they're primary and they don't want to have somebody who's giving their attention to someone else. And maybe they don't have aging parents that need help and they don't understand. But where has this disconnect come in though for these guys?
Funny is they're totally fine with a woman who, if her primary priority is her children, they're fine with that.
Yeah.
But if primary priority is her ailing parents or her business, they're not okay with that. My business is like my child. I've had my business since 2012,
Yeah.
right? I've had it way more than a hot minute at this point.
Yeah. And I wonder why that is. I mean, kids are way more of a responsibility.
Yeah. And like I said, the beauty I have always found with my business is the freedom of being able to work the way I wanted to. Last December in 2024, I flew back and surprised my dad for his birthday. My dad's birthday is December 13th. I flew in a couple days prior to that. I have altitude sickness now because I've been pretty much at sea level for the last few years. And mile high is a mile high. That's why the city's the city, right?
Yeah.
I had to have a day or two to recover before literally surprising him on his birthday with a big old thing of balloons and knocking on his front door. And then I was there for 3 weeks total. But
Wow.
I loved it because of my business. My parents finally got to see actually components of my business, and they understood that I do take my business serious. Yes, typically when I'm talking business, I have a unicorn horn on, right? But now we're talking about dating, so I'm not really going to wear my unicorn horn. But if I come back and talk about LinkedIn, I will totally wear the unicorn horn because it's part of my branding, right?
Yeah.
This is the topic that when you posted in a group out on Facebook, you and I have in common, I just thought I would love to be able to talk about this
Yeah.
in a forum that others can chime in because I know I'm not alone in feeling as a female business owner who's successful. She gets a lot of flack in the dating world. And then I also am now realizing this weird ass ageism bullshit of a caregiver. It doesn't matter. People are apparently okay caregiving to children, but not caregiving to their parents. Caregiving
Yeah.
is caregiving to me, whether it's to a dog, a plant, a person that's 2, or a person that's 72, or a person that's 102.
Yeah.
Caregiving to me. And I have a lot of love when I caregive. I worry about the minor details. And last night, my dad finally understood I worry about those details because I know wherever I put my parents for an assisted living facility, I want it to be safe and I want them to be able to feel at home because that's going to be the final place they're going to live. My
Yeah.
parents are divorced, so it's going to be awkward. I'll probably put them on different ends of the hallway until my mom has to go into memory care. But between my dad's heart and his kidneys, I don't know how long he would even be able to stay in the independent portion of a lot of these facilities I'm looking at.
Yeah.
And it's weird, Danielle, to do this research on my own. I've had
Yeah.
panic attacks this month because I don't know how to process this. I
Yeah.
don't. I wish I did, but I don't. I'm trying not to cry. And we're in my
Oh,
lovely
go
home.
ahead and cry. This
But
is a hard subject. This is a really, really hard subject. No one wants to talk about their parents aging. I
yeah,
just went through this with my grandparents, and you know, I was the one flying home. I live in Arizona. They lived in Indiana. I was the one flying home like every month to take care of them. I lost my grandpa last October, and I was there when he passed, and that was the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through. And then I lost my grandma suddenly this past May, and I'm still not recovered from it. So I lost both of my surrogate parents. I
I
was
know.
so close to them. And we were researching assisted living for my grandma and, going back home and touring facilities with her. It's a job in itself. And
Hmm.
then you're doing this on your own. Like, girl, give yourself some grace. Like,
And I have. And honestly, one of my LinkedIn clients is a death doula out in California.
okay.
So when my mom was diagnosed earlier this year with Alzheimer's, I reached out to my client and I said, tell me where I need to go. What kind of associations do I need to know about? What kind of research can I do? Where are websites that can give me information about how her brain will eventually turn into mush? Is there a difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? Are they the same? Are they symptoms of each other? I have lots of questions. And
Hmm.
she was able to point me in all sorts of directions and resources, which I'm very thankful for. So
Yeah.
when my mom dropped the bombshell earlier this month of, oh, hey, here's the bombshell, I
Yeah.
would like to do assisted suicide. I know Colorado has that, Katie, but I'm not going to stay in Colorado. Where near you do I have this same law? And I didn't know. So I called up my client out in California, right? She's a death doula. This is stuff she knows like that.
Yeah.
And she was able to tell me Delaware and New Jersey. But then she told me there's a lot more scarier lit- litigious aspects against care centers in the state of New Jersey versus Delaware. So that's why I'm looking at Delaware, is because somebody that I know and trust, because she's been my client on and off for 2 years now,
Yeah.
she's not going to point me in the wrong direction. She's not going to steer me into chaos. She's going to make sure that I land in a safe space because she knows my parents are my peoples, right?
Right.
And I appreciate her more than words can ever express. Just
Yeah.
the almost like the lighthouse piece that she brought. And that's why one of her components is a lighthouse. It's, like you've got your phoenix as part of your logo. She has a
Hmm.
lighthouse as part of hers because she knows that as that light comes around a lighthouse, she shines light when people need it in the darkness of caregiving and trying to
Right.
figure out something that you don't know unless you're immersed in it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You
It's a
know,
lot. Yeah.
it is. And I never thought, honestly, at 39, I would still be single. I'm a very gregarious, vivacious person. I'm a I'm an omnivore. I'm learning that. I'm very extroverted, yes, but I also do really well with sometimes just being in my space,
Yeah.
finding zen, finding my Hulu watch list, right? Finding the streaming services I like to binge watch.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes
And that's important.
it is. Sometimes I got to be a turtle and I got to go in my shell.
Yeah.
Right? And I would have loved to, by now, have had a significant other who can walk this next part of my life with me as I navigate these very uncharted territories and waters regarding caregiving. And
Yeah.
it's such a weird topic, but I know that I have to broach some of these topics when it comes to dating right out of the gate. I have to let him know I am a business owner. I have to let him know that I'm not a workaholic, right? I do
Yeah.
have certain things that happen in the evenings, like I'm going to do some networking later tonight. And next week, I have 3 other podcast interviews that are business related, but they're in the evenings because that person I have one in Hawaii and 2 in Australia for the hosts. So
Oh wow.
we're working a lot of time zones, right?
Right.
But usually I'm just finding one of my watch lists in the evening. Every
Yeah.
now and then there's a business function, right? And on the weekends now, I am so thankful, Danielle, that I have girly pops, as I call them, here in Philly that are willing to take their Saturdays with me to go and explore some of these places that are on a list of possible living facilities in Delaware, in the Wilmington, Delaware area, for me to consider potentially having my parents move into.
Yeah.
It talk about a good friend. Talk about a friendship that, though we've not been in each other's lives that long, they are willing to give up a Saturday, knowing that I'm going to be an absolute emotional mess of a human by the end of a tour. They're like, we're going to shoulder you up, girl. We're going to make sure that you can get through this. We're going to ask some questions. One
Yeah.
of my friends is in senior care from a different aspect. So she's like, I am definitely coming because I will ask questions you didn't even need, you should be asking. Right. And
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for my girly pops. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. It's really good you have that support system in place. They're specialized.
Yeah.
They know. And that's awesome that you have that and you have them to turn to. But as far as the dating piece goes, like what's the age range that you're looking in?
So when I first started dating, I always thought, okay, I'm going to go older because I know that most men, we have a maturity mismatch, right? So I might be 25, but have a maturity level of 30. And he'll be 35 with a maturity level of 30. So our maturity wise will match, right? As I've gotten older, I now look at other factors. So when I put my age range, I put as low as 30, which means I am, 8 to 9 years older than he is, depending on the time of year, up to 45. So I have a 15-year gap. And I thought that would also be beneficial. And in some ways, it's turned out to be more problematic because
Hmm.
I'll have men that are 45-ish that have recently gone through divorces. They've been married to somebody for 20 some years,
Yeah.
had multiple kids, and they don't know how to be in the dating pool because they never really did dating in their 20s. They
Yeah.
had already found somebody right away. And then they're also so used to having, more likely, a woman take care of everything,
Mm.
right? From the
Yep.
domestic standpoint, from the cooking and the cleaning, the making the fucking appointments, right? They're used
Yeah.
to having this other person do it. So he doesn't know how to do his life on his own. And that's, again, stemming back to that emotional availability and stability component. And then I've also been engaging with men who are closer to 30, 32. And I get kind of the opposite. They don't have the elements of having a woman in their life, 20 years, but they've also had a lot of mommy issues
Mm.
where
God.
they, yeah, they have the mama boy aspect, or they had narcissistic mothers. So they have just a complex all on their own, right? They either had somebody way too baby them and basically be the crutch and the enabler, right? Peter Pan. I think a
Mm-hmm.
psychology friend of mine called it the Peter Pan syndrome.
Peter Pan syndrome.
They never really grow up.
Yeah. Because
And
they
then
never
there's,
have to.
right. And then there's men that are like 35 to 39, right? So my senior year would have been his freshman year, if you kind of look at the high school, right? Because that's how some people still think of themselves, is back in the high school days. Oh, well, when I was a senior, he'd be a freshman. That would have been weird then, but it's okay now. Like,
Wait, people
okay,
still think that way?
yeah, it's quite funny. But
Oh, wow.
right? I've also had men in their mid 30s that they've had serious relationships on and off. They've had some engagements, but you can kind of tell that they're waiting for their ideal list, right?
Which
And
doesn't
don't get me wrong,
exist.
right? And when I say my ideal duck, I understand that I am never going to get all the checkpoints, never. But I know
Yeah.
that the main 5 that I really stress, those idealistic points, those are very easy for a man to have. They really are. Can you be kind? Can you have intelligence? can you be emotionally available and stable for that third look, right? A full head of hair. It's a weird one. It's a weird one, but I know it exists. Okay. Like I
It does
know it exists,
exist.
right?
But what if a bald guy checked all of your
And
boxes? Like,
then,
what
and
would
then
you do?
being input. So I actually had a friend ask that. And I said, so here's my weird thing, right? We're going to get real here. And I was like, it is
Okay.
an odd kink for me. When I was in high school, I was the girl that was always like making out with the boys. I never really actually had any type of sexual contact until after high school when I turned 18.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was 18, I was an adult, right? I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't get in
Yeah.
trouble. I could make my own decisions kind of mentality.
Yep.
So I got really good at second and third base. I got really good, right? When we were in high school, and those were all the bases you would try and figure out.
Yep.
So I have learned through dating a wide variety of men that one of the things that my ideal handsome duck will have is a full head of hair.
Hmm.
I know it's very
Okay.
specific. I have a local contact who's actually a very, very hilarious sex therapist here in Phoenixville area in the Philly suburbs. And she gave me some flack for that because she had an ideal person, but he was bald. And I was like, so he's not really ideal for me because those are kind of my 5 non-negotiables,
Hmm.
right? And
Okay.
it's funny that only one is physical. It's not about his height. It's not about his body type. It's about his hair. That's my one physical non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Otherwise, intelligence, a kind heart, being emotionally available and stable, and having some type of income that is stable, right? Because
Yeah.
that's kind of part of life right now. We've got dumpster fires right and left.
Right.
And if you can have some type of stable life that's provided because of a stable income, to me, that gives me a bit of relief because as a business owner with her own success, I don't necessarily want to be a breadwinner. I don't. If it happens on occasion, whatnot. That's fine. But going out of the gate, I don't want to be a breadwinner. I really want to find an equal footing between both people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's important.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want him to feel inferior, and
No,
yet
definitely
you
not.
don't want to feel inferior. I think
Exactly.
it's a good balance, to have something close
Hmm.
so that there's
Exactly.
no, I don't know what the word I want to use. There's no like inequality there.
Yeah.
So
Or
feelings
there's
about
not,
something.
there was somebody who I cannot remember who said it was a character actually in a TV show, and they talked about the fact that they both started equal in terms of an economic situation. He got a pay raise and she got a massive pay raise. And once she started making more than him, at first he liked it because they were able to do better vacations. They could have a very more productive life in many ways. But then he
Yeah.
started resenting her
Mm.
because his was never going to equal hers. She was always going to be the breadwinner. And it just kind of dissolved their relationship. And fast forward a couple years, and she's still doing phenomenal, and he is just shit out of luck.
Yeah.
He let the cap that he was at define him, you know?
Yeah.
And again, circling back to the fact that I'm a business owner, I thought that would be a positive aspect. And I'm finding it's a very strange red flag for a lot of men. Now, granted, I could just be finding the really insecure ducks at the moment,
Yeah. I
but
mean,
I've
there's
also,
always that. But I
yeah,
mean, how long
but
have you been doing this for? And
that's what I'm saying. Like, I've been in 3, 4, 5 different cities, right? I've been in several parts of the Denver suburban area when I lived there, and that's when I started my company. And then I lived in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and there was a lot of interesting things. There was a lot of horror stories about military men who were stepping out on their wives because she did that while he was deployed. So it was a tit
mm,
for tat situation. I'm not okay with that tit for tat. I'm not okay being a third person, and I'm not okay with being a side piece at all,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
No.
now in
No.
Philadelphia, it's the same thing. Like it's an odd pattern. And so I have sensed from other entrepreneurial women that they would love to date, but having a business that is successful and a a masculine vibe to get that business running the way it does is such a turnoff. And now
That's
also
so
with the
weird
dating,
to
you
me.
know?
It's got to go back to those old limiting beliefs like my wife can't make more money. I have to be the breadwinner. I have to be the provider. Instead of just enjoying what you have, like my husband's the breadwinner. I will
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know if I'll ever make as much money as him, but it doesn't matter because we have our life together and it's our life and I'm going to enjoy that life. No matter how much money he makes or no matter how much money I make, we're a unit.
Yeah,
So I don't understand where this disconnect is with these guys who just have this like macho mentality and can't handle someone who is successful.
right.
Like,
And
what is up, guys? I want to hear from you. Like, seriously, what
right?
is up? I genuinely want to know why this is.
Mhm.
Like, what's in the water out there? I want to know. Write to me, Danny at inspiredactionwellness.com. I want to know.
Yeah.
Really, inquiring minds want to know.
And you know what's kinda crazy is one of the best relationships I had, I was 25. He is 10 years older, so at the time he was 35. I cooked that man a 5-course meal, including Irish dishes,
Mm, yeah,
because he's Irish. That's part of his ancestry. He's, like, 3rd generation American, and the majority of his peoples are all Irish Catholics from the East Coast. When I was living in Denver, we met. He was an Air Force guy. I loved him to pieces. And I totally stepped into that feminine energy. I figured out how to make soda bread, Irish soda bread. Had no idea how to ever make that before. I got a cookbook of just Irish recipes and I figured out how to make things. So I made him a
mm,
5-course Italian meal once and a 5-course Irish meal once. So I can step into my feminine energy. It's just for the right person.
yeah,
And if that man was not active Air Force and had not gotten deployed during the early part of our dating, honestly, I have a feeling I would have married him at some point.
mm,
He's that bar. You know, we talk about standards and there's that bar that's set.
yeah,
That Air Force duck is what the standards are. And what's crazy is they're not high standards at all. He was kind. He was emotionally available and stable. He had a full head of hair, right? He was super intelligent and he had his economic situation stable. So I knew at that point, I was very early on in my
yeah,
business when I met him. And so I was not as successful as I am now, but he was stable to where if I was going to succeed in my business, it was never going to be that weird television show reference I made where I would have, if I ever made more than he did, he would have never cared. So I'm
yeah,
like, that's fine. I'm just still going to do my thing and we're going to build a life. Right. But then he got deployed I think within about 6 months of us meeting. And he didn't think with me being 25, I would be emotionally stable to be in such a long distance thing. And it just fizzled out. And it's one of those interesting lessons that life has given me where I have that bar of standards. Those are my non negotiables because of that Air Force duck.
yeah. Well, and you shouldn't have to compromise. I mean,
Yeah,
if those are non-negotiable, they're non-negotiable. And
exactly.
have you tried to look him up? Have you tried to find him?
So ironically, he and I are out on LinkedIn and he has retired from the Air Force. He retired a number of years ago. He lives out here on the East Coast. I think he is in a really good relationship with actually somebody from his past. He seems really happy from what I can tell in a couple other components. He's very stable. And so I really appreciate that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just LinkedIn, right? The people and the places that you can find there.
Yeah. You're gonna have to explain it to me because I just don't get it.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'll totally come back and do another episode of just the stuff on LinkedIn that y'all should know about. I'll wear my unicorn horn and everything.
Yes, we will. Well, Katie, it has been amazing talking to you. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights about this hellscape called dating in 2025.
Yes, and I hope that other listeners can relate in ways Right. I hope other female listeners that are successful business owners, like, don't give up. Get creative like I did. Ask your contacts. Would you be willing to go old school with me and play matchmaker on my behalf? If it works out,
Yeah.
great. If not, no harm, no foul.
Right. Like, what have you got to
I
lose?
intended to.
Seriously. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, make your PDF.
Right.
Actually, I mean, some people are going to think that that's really weird. I don't, because it just lays it out all very
Yeah.
clear, Do not bring me anyone unless they meet this list. If they can check at least these 3 boxes, and if he has hair.
Right? He's got a full head of hair and he's kind. Funny bone would be awesome, but not necessarily required.
Yeah.
I've dated some very, very dry humored people, and we're fine with that.
Yeah. I mean, as long as they check these boxes, I
Yep.
will
You got
bring
your
them to
mustache?
me and I will consider them.
Exactly.
You know,
I may or may not
bring,
let them in the pond. We'll see.
yeah, they may have to just sit on the shore for a while,
Right?
but, eventually they might get to swim. We'll see,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly.
Well, good luck with your parents. I know that that is so hard. And I remember back with my grandparents, it was really, really hard. And in one side of it, you're like in business mode. You're like, okay, I know I got to do this. I can find the facility. But then when it comes to the emotional side of it, you're like, oh shit. I don't know how to, I don't know
That's,
how to navigate these waters, you
and
know?
that's where my panic attacks came. The last
Yeah.
couple of weeks has been the emotional lifting to just understand my mom isn't doing something selfish. She's doing something selfless.
Yeah.
She knows that she doesn't want to ever be in that compromised mental state. And therefore, she doesn't want to put me in any type of state where I have to make decisions, not knowing if Nancy would have made that on her own, or if this is Katie being the daughter and being really emotional on a standpoint.
Yeah.
I understand where she's coming from,
Yeah.
and I applaud her for that. So
Yeah.
now, as her primary caregiver, I got to do things to make sure that her goals and her wishes are met.
Yeah. And that is an incredible gift that she gave you, because not a lot
Right.
of parents do that. A lot of parents are just like, you know what? I'll be dead. Let them figure it out. And they're like,
Right.
it doesn't matter. I'll be who I am. And I'm not going to go that route because I want to live until my last dying breath. And whatever happens, happens. And
Exactly.
it's so, like, realize what you're doing to your children and your family. I mean, if you don't have kids, then your family or your close friends, like, make a
It is.
plan. That's the best
Yep.
thing that you can do. That's a gift. So I'm really glad that she did that for you,
Me
because
too.
I know how hard it is to be a single kid. It's not easy.
Yeah. It's really not.
No. And then try to date on top of that. You have way more strength than I do.
I love it.
Yeah. It was great talking to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for letting me come and chit chat for, oh my gosh, almost an hour about this dating conundrum and,
Yeah.
finally talking about it.
Yeah. No, it was a good talk. I think a lot of people can identify with it. Maybe not everything, but if you are dealing with aging parents, it's great to hear someone else going through it, because sometimes I feel like we are going through things and we feel like we're on an island, and it's
Mhm.
like, no, we're really not. There are people out there that are going through the same things that you are, maybe not exactly, but similar, and we can all learn from
Exactly.
each other,
For
you
sure.
know?
It's part of
Yeah.
humanity, right? The human
Yeah.
experience.
Yes, we are all living a human experience. So,
Love it.
yeah. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us on Fine, I'll Talk About It. If today's episode got you thinking, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you want more real talk, more perspective shifts, and more finally someone said it moments, leave a quick review. It helps other people find the show. You can connect with me on Instagram at Inspired Action Wellness or my website, inspiredactionwellness.com, for more conversations like this. And we will see you in the next episode.